Good afternoon. Welcome to the first technical session of the day. My name is Christopher Sege of Mushkegwa Council, and I'll be your facilitator for this session. Our presenter for this session is Severio Rizzo. Severio is a Lakehead University graduate. He has been working with Matawa First Nations management in the technical department for over 20 years as a housing inspector/coordinator. He provides inspections on new and existing housing, as well as technical advisory in all areas of housing for 9 First Nation communities. Severio has a BCQ, Building Code Qualified designation through the Ontario Building Officials Association, and is also Wet Ink certified. Severio, who sits on the conference organizing committee, has been involved with the conference since its inception in 2003. I'd like to note that there will be a question and answer period at the end of the session. Please feel free to type your questions in the chat box on the side of your screen, and I can relay them to Severio at the end of the session. Severio, you can begin your presentation.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Chris, for the intro. Like Chris mentioned, my name is Severio Rizzo, and I'm going to be speaking about HRVs. A little bit about myself. As Chris mentioned, I work for Matawa First Nations management here in Thunder Bay, and we work for 9 First Nation communities, 5 of them remote, which are Niskandiga First Nation, Nibinamik First Nation, Martin Falls, Webakwe, and Yamatung First Nation, and 4 road accessible, which are Arrowland First Nation, Constance Lake, Kanugamin First Nation, and Long Lac 58 First Nation. All right, and actually, for those that have previously been to the conference, you've probably have seen me in person. I've been on the housing conference working group since its inception. And I'm not an HRV expert, but I do have a lot of knowledge being an inspector. So we'll get right into the presentation here. Okay. All right. So actually, before we begin here, I do have a few polls on the conference platform under my presentation. If it would be great if you guys can answer the questions. Normally, I would ask these questions in person, but and see a show of hands. But having these poll questions are great for me to be. It's my way of being interactive with the participants here. So just some simple questions. I just want to know how many people have HRVs in their home. Who is responsible for cleaning the HRVs? Either is it the occupant, the housing department, maintenance, or other? And the third question is, if you have an HRV in your home, have you cleaned it yourself? Okay. So I've split this up into 2 sections. So the first section is knowing your HRV, and the second part will be maintaining it. So for knowing your HRV, what exactly is an HRV, some components, installation methods, locating your HRV and mounting it, installing ductwork, installing exhaust and supply hoods, and locating the controls. So what exactly is an HRV? So it's stands for heat recovery ventilator. For those, I'm sure most of you do know that already. It's a mechanical ventilation device that balances supply air and exhaust. 1 second here. Oh, sorry. It exchanges heat between the supply and exhaust streams. I hope you guys can see my laser pointer here. I think you can. So I'm going to use it. You might see a little red dot wondering what that is, but I'm going to use it to basically point out some pictures and some things on the screen. So essentially, an HRV brings fresh air into your home, and it takes away stale air to the exterior. Newer homes now are built more airtight than previously due to updated building codes. And because of that, mechanical ventilation is required. I believe it was 2017 code, it became mandatory in Ontario. Oh, so sorry. So in here we have your warm air in the the fresh air to the house will come in here across the core and to inside of the house. And over here you would have the stale air going through the core this way and out the exterior. So we have some components of an HRV here. So your first one is your insulated ducts for fresh and stale air with exterior hoods. So this is your exterior exterior wall here. So we have this duct, and this duct would be your fresh and stale air to the exterior. You would have your hoods on the exterior there, and stale air and the fresh air would have to be insulated. So those ducts have to be insulated. On this side of the HRV, so the HRV would be right here in the middle. Here and here would be ductwork inside the home. Those would have to be rigid. There's fans here in the HRV here and here to circulate the air throughout the house. And the heat exchange core is in the middle here. You have filters right over here and right over here to keep out dirt from the heat exchange core. And there's a defrost mechanism inside the unit, as well as a condensate drain here. And there's also controls would be here. So your controls would be in either your, well, typically they're in your kitchen and bathroom. And also there's a main control in your hallway, typically. Okay, I have some installation methods here. So I have 3 of them. So the first one is a fully ducted system. So this example here is for homes with without forced air furnace. Typically, it would be wood heat or hydronic heat. So it would be a standalone HRV. It's not connected to a furnace at all. And so you would have your exhaust ducts here and here in your kitchen and your bathroom. And then you would have your supply in the bedrooms. There's one there. Okay. The next method here is an exhaust ducted system, which is connected to your forced air furnace, and it uses as I mentioned here, it uses your furnace blower to run when the HRV is operational, and it's connected to the supply is connected to your furnace cold air return. Okay, and you would see here the same thing. The exhaust ducts in the kitchen right here, and the bathroom right here. And here would be the supply duct in the central area of your home. And the third installation method I have here is a simplified system. Again, it is connected, the HRV is connected to your furnace here. And the exhaust and supply ducts are connected to the furnace cold air here. So this unit actually has just the one grill right here, and it uses the furnace blower to run when the HRV is operational. Okay. All right, so locating your HRV. So it's usually located in a heated area of above 10 degrees Celsius. You want it away from quiet areas, obviously. Easy access for maintenance and operation, and close to an exterior wall and close to a drain. So I have a couple pictures here. This one here on your left, this would be in a utility room, furnace room, in the basement of a home. Typically, you could see the condensate line here. There's access in front to open it up and clean it or service it. And on the right here, it is a this is a heated crawl space here. So there's, you see, you can access the HRV as well. You know, you want to make sure that the HRV is not in a unheated crawl space or an unheated attic. So that's basically it for locating the HRV. Mounting it, fairly straightforward. You're hanging it from solid framing. You don't want to hang it at midspan of joist, as this can cause structural vibration. So, you know, any mechanical machine would cause structural vibration if it's hanging in the wrong spot. And you know, similar to the other slide, try not to hang it from joists under quiet areas. Okay. So before we move on to installing ductwork, Matthew, would you be able to bring up the first poll there, just so we can see how many people have HRVs in their homes? So we'll continue on here, but Matthew will bring it up on the screen shortly. Okay, so we have almost 60%. Okay, that's good. Thanks, Matthew. Just to get an idea of how many people there. All right. All right, so installing the ductwork. So typically when the HRVs are installed, layout and sizing are to be done by an HRI certified residential ventilation designer. For those that don't know what HRAI is, it stands for Heating, Refrigeration and Air Conditioning Institute of Canada. So basically, the designer should be certified when designing the HRV and the ductwork for your home. Each home varies, so you know, you likely won't use the exact same design in every single house. You want to install the insulated flex duct on the, we talked about it, so it's on the exhaust and the intake side. So right here, that's the side that goes right out the wall to your intake and exhaust hoods. And then the remainder, I touched on this earlier, the remainder of the ductwork on this side would be the rigid rigid ducting. Don't use stud cavities as ducts, and make sure you seal the duct with aluminum tape, not duct tape. So aluminum's like the silver tape or that you would use. Surprisingly, duct tape is not used for everything, as some people may think. And install a removable grease filter on the kitchen exhaust. So you'll see something like this here at the bottom in your kitchen and your bathroom. Although the kitchen one, this little door will open up here and you'll see a filter there for grease. So you want to make sure that is on there as well. Okay. All right, installing the exhaust and supply hood. So I have a picture here at the bottom just to give you a more visual picture here. So you want to locate your intake or supply air hood away from any possible sources of contamination. So here would be your intake or supplier. So you don't want that in, on the same side as your driveway. If you have a driveway that's on the side of your home, you want it either on the other side of your house or at the back. You want to locate it away from windows and doors. So we have some windows here, but they're far enough away from the exhaust and the supply here. So that's okay. The exhaust and the supply should be a minimum of 6 feet apart. So you can see here, there's 6 feet. The intake or supply air is a minimum of 18 inches above grade. You can see right there. And on the other side, you can see that the exhaust is a minimum of 4 inches above grade. Okay. And yeah, you want to label them for identification purposes as well. Okay, locating your controls. So this control right here on your left is an older models or older style model. And the one on the right here is a newer style. You would see those in the central area of your home, typically away from high humidity. So you'd probably see it in your hallway, main hallway of your home. And this control here at the bottom, this would be in your bathroom or your kitchen. And you can, so how it works is you press it once and it would come on for 20 minutes. Press it twice, it would come on for 40, and 3 times it'll come on for 60 minutes. So typically, 20 minutes should be sufficient unless there's a lot of humidity in the home. So it should be pretty good. And these controls here, you'd be able to set for summer and winter settings as well. Okay, we'll go on to HRV maintenance. Before we start that, maybe I'll get Matthew to bring up another poll, the second one, who'd be responsible for cleaning the HRVs in your home. Okay, so occupant is 50%. Okay, housing department maintenance is a no-go, or C would be other. Okay, so there's quite a few, at least half it seems, that have cleaned HRVs, or sorry, at least the occupant is responsible. And okay, that's great. Thanks, Matthew. And we'll look at, actually, maybe we'll bring up that last poll too, just to see how many people have actually cleaned their HRVs. Okay, so we have less than 40%. Okay, not too bad. At least some people have before, which is great to hear. Okay, so we'll discuss the maintenance side of it right now. So first we'll inspect and hold on here. I think everyone could see my screen here. Let me just double check. Okay, here we go. So the yeah, so we'll inspect and clean the exterior hoods. What you want to clean the actual HRV, the components inside, the filters, the drain pans, and the core. You want to clean the interior grills, bathroom, kitchen, supply grills. You want to plug the unit in again and check the operating modes of controls. Inspect and confirm operation of defrost dampers. You want to check insulated ducts for problems. Inspect and seal all accessible duct joints, and repair, replace any defective components. And lastly, measure and balance airflows. Okay, before we get into those, I just want to go over why you should clean your HRV. So, keeping your HRV and components inside clean, for example, your filters is necessary to maintain the ventilation efficiency of your unit. You want to allowing your HRV to work efficiently will keep bills low, but having filters clean will allow it to operate with more effectiveness. So, it's similar to having, your furnace filter dirty. So if you have your furnace filter that's never been changed in a long time, it's really dirty. Your furnace isn't going to run as effectively as it should. Similar to, for example, having a car or a truck. You would get your oil changes on a regular basis. You would do repairs to it. So otherwise, it's not going to run properly. So same applies for an HRV. And this year more than ever, right? People are spending more time indoors due to COVID, and it's very important to have your HRV operating efficiently. Sorry about that. So we'll get right into the first one. So you want to inspect and clean the exterior hoods. So this one here is an older style, but the same rules apply. You want to clean it with a stiff brush or a rag. You want to replace any broken screens and recock any recock or foam the hood. So you could see here that the screen looks like it's a little damaged here. I would replace that, otherwise you're getting insects in there. It looks like the caulking may need to be redone here as well. And on this side here, you can see that the screen is pretty dirty, so that would need a good cleaning there as well. Okay, and here we have some different types of hoods. You can see the first one here at the top left. It has excellent airflow. There's lots of airflow in here. That's a really good one. This one here, it's a little more restrictive. There's more plastic there, you could see. This one here is similar to the one we had on the previous slide, but you can just see that it needs to be recocked there, so that should be done. And this bottom one here, I haven't actually seen it myself in any projects, but there is these types that do exist. It only needs one penetration in the wall, and it's typically used if you're constrained for space. So the fresh air would come in the bottom here, and the stale air would come out from here. So, okay, and moving on to the next page here. So you want to this is where you clean the inside of the HRV. So you want to clean the filters, drain pans, and the core. So first thing you do would be to unplug the unit. Now, each manufacturer as well might have, different instructions. So you want to take a look at the instructions before you do that as well. There are some HRV maintenance guides out there that'll help you clean, and I'll touch on that at the end of the presentation as well. So you want to unplug it. Be careful not to break any plastic components, and you'll hear me mention that a few times. So you want to be very careful that you don't damage any components when you're cleaning. So to clean it, you would need a vacuum, some damp rags, maybe some mild detergent or soap, and excuse me. You would actually maybe a little tub of some warm water that you could use as well. So you can visually inspect the core. If it isn't too dirty, just vacuum it. Otherwise, remove and flush out with a hose or soak it in a laundry tub. You want to vacuum or wash the filters and replace any filters as necessary. You could see here that this is a filter. Typically, there's 2 of them in an HRV, and this filter here is very, very dirty. It's a pretty dirty one, so it likely wasn't done or it wasn't cleaned for quite some time. Here we have the inside of the HRV. So you have the core here, you have the filters here and here. Typically what I like to do is I like to take the filters out first, vacuum them. If they're really dirty, wash them down. The core you can just pull out, straight out, and you can do the same thing to that. And then you, at the bottom here would be the condensate drain. There would be a hole in there, and it would come out the bottom, which would go to a drain. So you want to, once you have everything out, you want to make sure everything is clean inside. So you want to take a rag to the inside so you can wash this here and here, and some components up here maybe. Use a rag, and we'll see on the next slide. So we have a before here. You could see all the dust and maybe some insects here. There's the filter over here. There's a filter on this side. You can't really see the filter, but you can see some dust down here too, and on the side. So once you take a rag to and clean that out, it would look more like the picture on the right. That is a clean HRV there. So here's the here would be the next slide. Here we have your drain lines. Those come out from the bottom of the HRV, and that's where the condensation goes, usually to a drain. You want to flush those out with warm water, and if they're really bad, you can probably replace them. It's not too hard. Maybe $20 all it would take would be about $20 at the hardware store to replace that. And we have your interior grills. You want to get those cleaned as well. So use a vacuum or damp cloth to clean these grills here. Check the exhaust in your bathroom and kitchen, and your supply in the bedrooms and living room area. So like this example here on your left would be an exhaust. You would see that near the ceiling on your wall, typically in your bathroom or kitchen. And this one over here on the right is something that you would see usually in a basement or some bedrooms for the supply air. Otherwise, you would see the supply duct or supply grills at the bottom of the wall in the bedrooms and the main living area. Your controls, we saw a few other pictures before. These are some older ones here. Before you check the controls, you want to make sure all the components that you took out of the HRV are all dry. Put them back in, plug in the unit, shut the door. You want to make sure that the fans run at different speeds, and the controls turn on and off the unit. So here are some of the controls here at the bottom. This would be your main, in your main area of the house, something like that. This is an older model, keep in mind. And something like this would be in your bathroom, kitchen area. And keep in mind that each manufacturer has their own control. And so they are only used with their with the HRVs they're meant for. So you can use you know, it's like using you know, you don't really want to use Venmar control with a different brand name HRV. It probably won't work too well. You want to check your dampers in the unit here. So most HRVs have a damper. So basically in cold weather, it'll periodically close off the fresh air and open a path to recirculate warm air to defrost the core. Check manufacturer's instructions to test this. and you want to confirm the damper opens and closes and seals properly. You don't want to damage. So you can see down here, the damper motor here, temperature sensors here, and the dampers right here. I would say that everything else we've talked about and cleaning the HRV up until this point can be done fairly easily by the average person. To check, when you start checking the dampers and the fans, you may want someone, someone from maintenance, the maintenance department in the communities, or someone that works with HVACs to check these. You want to obviously check the insulated ducting as well. So you want to make sure everything's sealed here in the bottom right, that there's no tears or rips or holes in the vapor barrier. And you want to make sure that everything is, the insulated part of the duct is still attached. And on the bottom here, you could see just some instructions on how to put it back if you need to.
Hey, Sir Valerio, it's Chris here. Just a note, you're 32 minutes in your presentation.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Okay, so next we have the inspecting and sealing your joints in your duct. So here and here, again, we touched on this earlier. You want to use aluminum or mastic tape, not duct tape, for these joints. So they should be taped already. You just want to check them to make sure there's the seal isn't broken. And here's some common repairs, some defective components in the HRVs. So this first one here, worn out filters, and maybe the bottom two damaged exterior hoods and the insulated flex duct. So repairing those, I would say the average person could do that. But anything else on this list, you'd probably want someone that, again, as I mentioned, has a lot of experience, someone from maintenance or an HVAC person. There could be defective damper motors, defrost temperature sensors not working, fan motors that are seized up, defective control boards or relays, broken drain fittings or blocked drain lines. So these are some of the most common ones. I know that I was in a house once that was, built 8 months earlier, and there was this person was starting to have condensation on their windows, and their HRV was on the right setting. It turned out that a control board went in the actual unit, and it was unfortunate. Things like, anything electronic, there's defective parts occasionally, so it is a hindrance, and it does happen time to time, but there's nothing that the person could have done in the house to prevent that. It was under warranty, so they got it replaced. So the last thing you want to do is you want to measure and balance the airflow. So previously on older HRV models, you would have to find a good location to balance. So you can see the bottom left here. You would put these balancing ports in a long straight section, and that's where you would tie in the hoses that connect to your magnehelic gauge, and I'll touch on that on the next slide. But that's where you would test it. But nowadays, most of the HRVs have balancing taps right on the door, and you would balance them with the damper and damper and fan speed adjustment. So you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, those black little dots. That's where you would balance your HRV from. Okay, so some common balancing procedures. So like I just mentioned, you would use something like this. This is the magnehelics pressure gauge. You would take pressure readings across the core for the supply and the exhaust flow with this. And you would use the pressure flow table found on each unit to compare and balance airflows. You want to balance the airflows within plus or minus 10% for proper operation. And you want to use the pressure flow table found on the flow measuring station, which is the MagnaHelix here, to compare that to the chart on the side of the HRV. So I'll give an example of that on the next slide. So basically, you would connect the MagnaHelix here with these rubber tubes. So here and here, you would take that reading, and then you would take it from here and here. So you can see it's connected there. And okay, let me see. All right, so yeah, the next one here. So here would be an example down here of the chart you would find on your, the HRV. So those are the numbers you would use to match the MagnaHelix gauge. So as you can see here, you're looking at the stale air from here and here, and you would take that reading. And here you were looking at the fresh air balancing ports, and you would look at the flow chart here for the reading as well. So what you want to make sure those are basically almost the same. So the idea here when you're balancing is to make sure that the same amount of air is coming in that leaves the unit. Okay. So some signs of poor balancing here. You would have so if any of these are occurring in your homes, you might figure out that some of these mean that you have poor balancing. So excessive cold air from your fresh air duct, frost on your fresh air pipe to the house, furnace, frozen door locks is a possibility, high energy bills, backdrafting of chimneys, poor moisture removal, and some HRVs will actually turn themselves off. So those are some signs that I could tell you. I was in a house once as well where for some reason they had moved in before the HRV was balanced, and there was negative pressure in the house because the fan in the bathroom typically goes one way, but the negative pressure in the house, because the HRV wasn't balanced properly, caused the fan to go the other way in the bathroom. So once the HRV was balanced properly, it was corrected. So just an important caution: always update or unplug your HRV before starting any maintenance. Keeps you safe from moving parts and electrical shock. Avoid drawing dust and debris into the ductwork as well, and refer to manufacturer's instructions and recommendations. Always do that. Use the proper tools and cleaning supplies. And again, as I mentioned a few times before, you want to avoid damaging any parts. All right. And keep in mind that I mentioned this already. Before you measure any airflows, you want to make sure that the filters, core, drain pan, grills, and hoods are clean. And as I mentioned, the purpose of balancing HRV is to make sure you have the stale air and exhaust air, sorry, the exhaust air and the fresh air the same rate. And here I actually have a physical maintenance guide in front of me here, but I also have it on the screen. So this guide was, we developed it about 10, 11 years ago for our housing conferences, or sorry, for our housing conference. And it was put in the, delegate bag for all the delegates. So I know that we have been reached out to from housing managers, and they've asked us if they can purchase these online. So you are available to reach out to us through the housing community, or you can email me as well, and you can order these for your community if you would like. it would be beneficial if occupants are cleaning their own to have something like this near their HRV or even taped to the side of it. And that's about it. If there's any questions, I know I kind of went over my limit, so we have a few minutes for questions. My contact info is there as well. If we don't have time for your questions, I can feel free to email me. And I just want to give a special thanks to CMHC for letting me use some of the information in my presentation. It was taken from their Train the Trainer manuals. So yeah, thank you very much, and we'll open it up to any questions.
Awesome, Severio. Great presentation. We have a few questions here for you. When installing HRV in an older home, do the windows need to be replaced?
Well, it might be a good idea to replace the windows, especially if you have a unit that has really old windows and they're pretty leaky. It would probably make the unit work more efficiently if you do that. So yeah, I would say yes to that.
All right, great. And another one, is it expensive to have your HRV plugged in all the time?
No, that's actually a really good question. I know a lot of people like to, well, not a lot of people, but I've seen some HRVs unplugged in people's homes because they do think that it uses a lot of hydro. Typically, it's the same as a 50 to 100 watt light bulb being on all the time. You know what I mean? And so it doesn't cost a lot, and your home, you know, doing that to ensure your home is well ventilated and maintains good air quality is, you know, is very beneficial. So I would not unplug it if it was in your home.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you on that one. It costs maybe a quarter a day. Very inexpensive. We have another one here. How often should you clean your HRV?
Okay. So typically, you know, if you do it once a year, that would be sufficient. Twice a year might be, you know, might be better. I like to clean mine twice a year, usually once in the spring, once in the fall. You know, it's up to the individual, but at least once a year would be beneficial. I know a friend of mine that actually lives in Thunder Bay. I was asking him about his HRV and when he cleaned it, and he had no idea what to do. He said he didn't know he was supposed to clean it. So he was living in his house for about 7 years and it hadn't been cleaned. So I actually gave him one of these maintenance guides, and he's now doing it yearly. So yeah,
Great,
for sure.
Great to hear. We have one more quick one. We have a few minutes left. What settings should you set your HRV at during the winter or summer?
Okay, well, typically in the winter, you want to set it lower to prevent condensation on the windows. And in the summer, if it isn't humid out, you can set the control to the highest setting. If it's really humid, I don't really recommend it. I know some people turn their HRVs off, but for the most part, you want to just set it at the highest setting. So some of the controls actually have summer mode and winter mode on it. So you want to make sure you're on the right mode for the season that you're in.
Great, awesome. Yeah, that's all the questions that we have right now that we have time for. We're at 45 minutes for the session. Just like to thank you again for your time today and putting together this presentation. It's very excellent information, and I'm sure a lot of communities will benefit from it. And I'd just like to let you know that we have a commissioned a print from a First Nation artist, Daryl Big George, and we'll be sending it to you. Also, there should be a banner coming up at the bottom of your screen for a code for Passport to Prizes. Just record the code down on a piece of paper for later. There it is right there, session code house. And yeah, that'll be all. Once again, thank you, Severio. Just as a note at the bottom of the presentation, there's a 5-question survey that you could fill out. Please fill it out when you have a moment. Your feedback is very important to us. And just a reminder that come back at 3 p.m. There's a powwow aerobics with Dallas Arkin. So we'll see you all then. Thank you.